When I was a couple weeks short of my 70th birthday, I started thinking about my mother's mother, who lived to be 100, and her mother, who lived to be 102, and my father, who lived to be 90, longer than anyone we had ever heard of in his family. I began to think that maybe our generation could be the first to routinely live to be 100. When I talked about this at family dinner one night, my granddaughter, who was 5, said,
"What are you going to do for the next 30 years, Grandpa?"
Hello, I'm Dr. Janet Price.
And I'm Gregg Kaloust. And we are Oldish. And this is our podcast, Oldish.
If you're oldish or know someone who is, please join us every week for conversations amongst ourselves
And our special guests
about what it means to be oldish in the 21st century.
If you ever wonder whether you're getting old, you're oldish. What are you going to do for the next 30 minutes? Hi, I'm Greg, and I'm oldish.
Hi, I'm Janet, and I'm oldish. Welcome to this episode of our podcast, Oldish Conversations on Aging in the 21st Century. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Janet. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about thinking about and talking about Valentine's Day, which is coming up any second here.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I've been thinking about it all week, and I think it's a good idea for us to talk about perhaps how Valentine's Day may be different in our oldish, and a couple of other things that we mentioned that we might want to talk about. So why don't you start it off with your usual in-depth research?
I will. Thank you. So I was looking up to the history of Valentine's Day, and it does date back to ancient times, which I didn't realize. So going all the way back to ancient Rome, which I think is our earliest mention of Valentine's Day. Well, no, it wasn't called Valentine's Day yet, but it was originated with a Roman festival, which was held in mid-February. And this festival celebrated fertility. And part of the festivals included pairing of couples. So it did originate with some sense of romantic or relationship-based thinking. Then it was named after Saint Valentine, who was executed on February 14th, around 269 AD. There's different legends surrounding him, but one popular story suggests that he defied the Roman emperor, who was Claudius II, by secretly marrying couples to spare the husbands from being conscripted into the army, which I think is kind of cool when we think about where we are right now in our own country and world, is that I wonder how many people think of Valentine's Day as an act of resistance.
Oh, good point. That's
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yes. So way back when it was first labeled Valentine's Day, St. Valentine's, who was executed on February 14th, was defying the emperor and marrying couples in secret, so they wouldn't have to go into the army.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. I did a little bit of research myself, and I didn't see that one. Yeah, that was good.
So then the rest is kind of moving into how we know of Valentine's Day. It became a holiday in 496 AD, so still a really long time ago. And the Pope at that time labeled it a holiday, turning it into a Christian feast day. And this is what helped the holiday become associated with romantic love over time. I just have to say, the Catholics jumped in and grabbed this holiday, which was based on an act of resistance, and made it into a nice, lovely, romantic love holiday. So let's remember that, especially as we talk about being oldish, because maybe as we are in our oldishness, we can redefine, as much as we want to, redefine Valentine's Day into an act of resistance, whatever that might look like. And then finally, heading into the 19th century up to the present time, Valentine's Day became more commercialized with the advent of printed greeting cards, and the tradition of exchanging cards and gifts grew, as we know. And now Valentine's Day is celebrated in many countries around the world with various customs, including the giving of gifts, flowers, and cards to express love and affection.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, that's where we are.
Well, that's where we are. So one of the things that I was thinking this week as an oldish person is my own history of Valentine's Day. What I remember of it is from elementary school. And it started off right away in elementary school being a giant source of anxiety for everybody involved. And you had to get pre-made Valentine's cards. And some classes that I was in, you had to give one to every person of the opposite sex,
Yes.
but they had to be opposite sex. And other classes, you were supposed to give them to somebody that you wanted to be your special Valentine. Or even in the classes where you had to give them to everybody, it was a special Valentine. So there was all this anxiety about, first of all, choosing a special Valentine and also not getting a special Valentine card. And so there was a huge amounts of anxiety around that. And then a very weird kind of anxiety, which was, and I don't know if kids still do this, but it was really important in my family to give my mother a Valentine's card. And that's looking back, that was like, wait a minute, your mother isn't supposed to be your Valentine.
Yes.
But we had to do it. And my mother would get mad at us if we didn't. One last thing about that is that I'm in the house that I grew up in, and I'm the last member of my birth family, and the house has been in the family for a couple of generations. And one of the things that I'm going to have to do is clear out the attic. And I would be willing to bet a lot of money that there's a container in the attic that's got Valentine's cards in it from the 1950s.
Wow.
And I'm afraid to go in the attic because it's really weird up there. But I'm going to have to eventually, and I'll report back on the weirdest Valentine thing I find in the attic after I dare to go up there.
Okay. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll arm you with symbolic armor and protection.
Yeah.
But, you're touching on something that I think is true today, which is, what is Valentine's Day? Is it for our parents? Is it for our kids, especially our adult kids? Is it just for children? And then here we are thinking about, what does it mean as oldish to have Valentine's Day, to celebrate it? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think it raises the question in general as oldish, what does love look like?
Mm-hmm.
And it's different. Love as an oldish person it's not even the same species as what I thought love was when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
From my point of view, it's broader and deeper and way less commercialized. I'm feeling a lot less of an urge to do chocolate and flowers. And I'm also coincidentally feeling a lot less wondering. I spent many years saying, wait a minute, where's my chocolate and flowers? Because it seemed like the commercialization of Valentine's Day sometime 20, 30 years ago was definitely about men have to give gifts to women. And if they don't, they're going to hear about it. And
also, first number one, you have to give something to your special person, and then you're going to be judged because whatever the other person was expecting, it's not big enough box of chocolates, or I wanted chocolates and a gift, and how come I didn't get that bracelet? And how, are you taking me out to dinner? And you're taking me out to dinner there? That we go, is this, I think in some circles, it becomes such a competition, and that the guy often feels like he can't meet the expectations.
Yeah, it's real easy to fail at Valentine's Day.
Yes. And you think about going back to when we were kids. As you were talking, I was thinking, I don't remember having to find a special Valentine in elementary school, but we did give each other Valentines, and we made mailboxes. We each made a mailbox and other kids could put their Valentines in our mailbox in the slot. And so the competition and the anxiety for me was, would I get any? And then I probably would get a few, but then there was that competition where other kids are talking about how many they got. And so it was almost a lose-lose situation. You want to get some, but you know that even if you get some, you're not going to get as many as other people. And then here we are through a lifetime where it's often up to the guy to, in a heterosexual relationship, to go above and beyond whatever the partner might have wanted. So maybe getting into oldishness, we're kind of like on the downside of that arc of expectations. And maybe at this point, we can be thinking about what do we want? What do each of us, and it could be obviously very different for each person, but what do you want Valentine's Day to mean? And I just want to throw in as a therapist that communication is everything. So even be able to talk about maybe before Valentine's Day, talk about as a couple, what is your history around Valentine's Day? What has been fun? What has been disappointing? Do you have expectations? And talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, especially since so many of us who are oldish are in relatively new relationships for one reason or another. And others of us are in relationships that have gone on for a very long time. And that conversation maybe doesn't happen. So that puts me in mind the communication part, which is always vital. That puts me in mind of something you were saying a little while ago about love language.
Yes, I was actually thinking about love languages in anticipation of Valentine's Day and this podcast, and wondering how many people in our audience, how many people listening now have heard of love languages. I don't know if it's a fad or it's definitely something that's grown up since we were younger. And so you might have heard of it, you might not have. So I'm going to go through what they are, and then also thinking about how these love languages, how do we express them, and how do we get our needs met around love as an oldish person. So there's 5 love languages, and this is just one way to think of love and connection. And it's not all one or the other, but they are attention. So getting and giving attention can be someone's way of showing their love and experiencing love. Quality time, just really spending time together without your cell phones, without technology, maybe, and really be able to look at each other in the eye and listen. And then that's 2, attention and quality time. Physical touch, which can be anything from sex to holding hands to hugs to pat on the back. Acts of service, which can look like someone is doing things for you because they love you and want to show their love by the acts of service. And then the last one is gifts, receiving gifts. So, yes, I wonder what that looks like for people as we're getting oldish, and also maybe taking it away from, just like Valentine's Day, it's not necessarily romantic love or sexual love or sexual expression, though obviously it can be, but it's also can be all these other things.
When you talk about love language, it sounds to me like music. Those are all musical elements that can be used to make kind of a song, or melody, whatever you want to call it. And when you were talking about it earlier, when that thought went through my head, it was like, oh yeah, it could be a rock and roll band. You could express this. So, I'm going to twist this metaphor as much as I can. So your love language could be spoken like a rock and roll band, or like a jazz ensemble, or like a string quintet. There's 5 of them. Don't always have to use all 5 of them all at once, but if there's a string ensemble or a vocal a cappella ensemble, like a barbershop quartet or something like that, or I think that's probably is enough of that. But so the energy that's involved in it, the expression of it can be anywhere from raucous to soft, to harmonious, to what's the opposite of harmonious?
Cacophony.
Yeah, there you go, cacophony. So this is a time, maybe a good use of the holiday is to practice your love language and serenade your honey with your love music.
Yes, that's so lovely.
Yeah.
And I think about all of us as we're aging, and think about how much of some of these needs that we have sometimes get lost along the way. And it's interesting, you talked about oldish people often starting in new relationships, as you and I both have, and acknowledging that there are many couples that have been together for decades, and that wherever we are around relationship, sometimes we start having less attention. I'm going to love languages, attention. Sometimes there's less of it. And attention, like for our personal selves, our quality time. If you're a couple that's been together forever, you might have lost that sense of quality time, especially as you were raising children. But now you're on the other side of that. So bringing that back in, physical touch. And then I'm also wanting, as I say these, thinking about people who are not in a relationship, either not anymore, and maybe their partner has died, maybe they're just divorced, not together. So physical touch. And I don't know, I just keep thinking about older people that don't have anyone to hug them or hold their hand or sit with them, close together. Then acts of service, that's something that we know from research is so important for us as we're aging, is to still feel like and know that we can give back to the community around us. That can be an act of defiance also, is the acts of service, bringing kindness and gratefulness into our circles, and then finally receiving gifts. And I was thinking of that as it doesn't have to be, again, that bracelet or the gift certificate to a restaurant. It can be the gift of time, the gift of a walk together, a gift of reading aloud to each other. There's so many ways we can give gifts to each other.
Yes, that don't involve chocolate and flowers.
Though they're not bad either. Just have to throw that in there.
Yeah, I will. Anyone's listening, I will happily accept chocolate and flowers. Doesn't have to be on February 14th, but, anytime you feel an urge to exercise your love language by giving somebody chocolate and flowers, I'm in.
It's always a nice thing, yes.
Well, so I have to throw in here that Valentine's Day can be a reminder of there's not enough love in the world. We have to go make it. We have to share it. We have to sing the songs and do the service and hold hands with people in a joining with way as well as in a protective kind of a way. And probably more than at any time in history, we need to be out there Valentining each other.
Yes, that is so important. As you said, especially at this time when there's so much adversity, so much division, so much us versus them. How do we bring that all back and say, hey, we're all human. We all need these things. We can give these to each other.
Yes. And as an expression of courage, one of the things that we know I was looking it up this morning, and in Wikipedia, it said that there are several people named St. Valentine. There's a St. Valentine of Rome and a St. Valentine of some other place. And what they had in common was that they were martyred by an authoritarian government for doing the right thing. So those of us who are in our oldishness a little bit nervous about taking risks and standing up for what's right and loving the people that we need to love, St. Valentine, all of the ones that we think of as St. Valentines were martyred. I'm not suggesting that you go off and find a lion to fight, but standing up for what's right is I suppose it's part of service, but it kind of touches all of the love languages, I think.
It also just made me think about breaking through barriers, both around us in our community, in the world, and also in our own home, like our relatives, parents, if they're still alive, cousins, etc., is if there was a unspoken expectation of that we don't hug or that we don't say I love you, and just an assumption, of course, I love you. As an oldish person, this is a time that we can take a stand and say to that person, I just want to say out loud, I love you. I just want to say, I just want to give you a hug. And I can say that about my own father, who's no longer alive, that he wasn't great at that. And it was not until I was an adult that I was able to have the courage to break that unspoken whatever and say out loud, I love you, and hug. So I guess I want to encourage people both on this holiday and then every day to think about, is there something holding you back sometimes from showing someone that you love them, that you care about them, that you accept them?
Yes, absolutely. And speaking as an oldish person who's not getting any younger, and as an oldish person who's just lost his last family member, if not now, when? What are you waiting for?
Yes.
And probably the worst thing that you can do is to get to the end of your life and say, oh, I meant to tell so-and-so that I loved them, and it's too late. So take advantage of the cover provided by the holiday for St. Valentine's Day and tell somebody.
Mm-hmm. Just made me think of one of the books we have reviewed on the podcast called Walking Each Other Home. And I just have an image of holding hands as we walk, and whether that be symbolic or in actuality, but just that idea of, I am taking this moment. I don't want to miss the chance to acknowledge and experience that we're walking home together.
Yes. Well, that's a nice note to end on.
Yes.
So I want to end this up by saying Happy Valentine's Day, Jane, and Happy Valentine's Day to you, Janet.
Happy Valentine's Day, Greg. I'll send it out to Colin, my new honey, and Greg, and also to take this opportunity to say I love you and make sure I don't miss the chance to say how much you mean to me.
Yes. Likewise, I love you too, and I don't know where I'd be without you and this.
So happy Valentine's Day to everyone, and wish you the very best in making this day and all the days full of gratefulness and kindness to others and kindness to yourself and love.
Yes, absolutely. And find someone and go out and make some love language music tonight. And don't forget to love everybody.
Yes.
Bye, Janet.
Bye, Greg.
That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Now more than ever, it's time to love someone and be sure to tell them. Our next episode, coming up soon, will be another installment of the Oldish Book Club. This time we're reading The Ride of Her Life by Elizabeth Letts. It's the fascinating story of Annie Wilkins, who in 1955, at the age of 65, rode her horse from Maine to California and won the hearts of a nation in transition. You can find it in your library or at bookshop.org/shop/oldish. You can leave comments or requests for topics or guests on this or other episodes at www.oldish.me. There's a link there too if you've wondered how you can help support our podcast. If you like what you heard today, please tell a friend and rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.